What's up, YouTube? Uncle Jim here. It's going to be a tough video for me. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this one, but here goes. Last week on the 9th, a couple days before I was set to leave, I took a morning hike with my ruck across my property to go visit with my father in the morning. And by the time I got to his house, I realized he wasn't home and that something wasn't right. I wasn't feeling right. So I came inside and dropped my ruck, and within a few minutes, I went into a low sugar attack. My legs were shaking, my whole body was shaking. I was getting dizzy and lightheaded, and I pretty much went to the floor and laid there. And my sugar had to have been down in probably the 20s or 30s. I mean, I was almost unconscious, and I couldn't move for like 2 hours, and nobody was around. I was finally able to, in a stupor, figure out how to use the phone and call my sister Amanda, who came rushing over, thank God, and got me to the emergency room, where they got an IV in me and got some sugars in me. And so I guess the moral of that story is my hypoglycemia is getting worse. I have reactive hypoglycemia. And at the point I'm at now, I've been in and out of the hospital for the last week, almost every day, getting different tests, different labs run on me, CT scans. There's really nothing you can do for reactive hypoglycemia. That's where whenever I eat something that has glucose in it, my body reacts by dumping insulin into my system to get rid of the sugars, and I end up going into a low sugar reaction, passing out, which, as you could tell, for somebody that's going to be hiking the Appalachian Trail through vast portions of wilderness by themselves, passing out because you ate a bite of a Snickers bar is not an option. And I'm, if I was partnered up with somebody who could watch to see if I was exhibiting the signs of low sugar, and maybe, because part of having low sugar is that you start getting loopy and that you start making bad decisions, and you might not even notice you're in a low sugar situation until it's too late, and by then you're falling asleep on the side of the trail somewhere, and other hikers walking past just probably figure you're a lazy bum or something, I don't know. Meanwhile, you're going into a diabetic coma. So this may mean at the moment that I'm not able to step off. I've already missed my step off date. Another funny story. The day after I got out of the hospital, I called up my well, first I called Ron Brown, the shuttle driver that you can find him in the AWOL's Appalachian Trail guidebook, and he's the one I got my shuttle plan through to pick me up from the Greyhound bus station and bring me to Amicalola. Well, I spoke with him, very nice guy, and he was able to, preliminarily at least, postpone my my pickup date, even though it's non-refundable, but he was a nice enough guy to put it off for a month. So hopefully if I can figure this out in a month, maybe there's still a shot that I didn't lose that money. Then I called the Amicalola Hotel, the Amicalola Lodge, and was very shocked when I tried to get my reservation changed or canceled that Booking.com never actually contacted the hotel. Booking.com took my money as a third party and said they were booking me the last room in the hotel, which was a lie. They never contacted the hotel. So I had what I thought was a confirmation number, but it turns out I wasn't actually booked. So I would have got down there to find out that there was no hotel room waiting for me, which is whatever. I got a ruck, but it would have still been a pretty big inconvenience for as much money as I paid for the room. And then I tried contacting the Greyhound bus company, which was also a non-refundable, non-changeable thing, only to find out that there was a massive snowstorm coming in, and they canceled my bus for that day anyway. So had I drove out to Scranton, Pennsylvania to get on a bus, I would have found out that I couldn't get on a bus that was taking me to a hotel that didn't have a room for me. So I guess all things happen for a reason, and it was probably a good thing, because had I made it to the trail on time, I would have experienced that low blood sugar level within the first quarter mile of the approach trail and would have became unconscious, which is life-threatening. So after getting out of the hospital today, I realized that I had to put this whole thing on hold for a little bit until I can figure out a way to stabilize my blood sugars. Because as I've been almost useless. I go a few minutes and I have to lay down or pass out. I slept 3 hours in the hospital today while they ran tests on me. I came home, I slept in a chair for another 5 hours. I spent my whole day asleep because my body just doesn't have the sugar it takes to stay conscious and stay running. So that's pretty tragic, So I got out of the hospital today, and I immediately went to the bank and I withdrew my money. This is all my money I saved for the Appalachian Trail. There's like $13,000 there, and I took it all out of the bank because it's better off in my safe than me spending it and losing all my savings that I've saved. I've saved every tax return for the last several years. This has been 10 years of planning. I mean, I sold my Harley for this. I just recently sold my van. I boarded up all the windows in my cabin, and I boarded up the door. I took all my vehicles off the road. I mean, I was all in. Up until the last day, the last couple days, and it's kind of taken me off track. But like I said, my tickets for the Ron Brown shuttle still stand, and I got it rescheduled for the 13th of March. Now, whether or not I can get this figured out by then is another story. I had my doctor's permission, Dr. Judd's permission to take off on this trip, and he's the only one rooting for me. The rest of my doctors, though, I've been fighting tooth and nail all week. They don't want to hear Appalachian Trail. They don't want to hear anything about my trip. They don't care how much money I spent, how much time, effort. They're all kind of ganging up on me with the insistence that if I do this, I'm dead. So, that being said, I don't know if there's a path forward here. I don't know if there's a way that I can somehow restructure my diet. It sounds impossible to, I don't know the requirements that my body's asking for. Obviously, you can't feel when 10 minutes of exercise could lead to me passing out. So, my plan going ahead, if I can't get something figured out within the next month, and I have to postpone my thru hike further, I was thinking about doing a 3-part trip. I might just do a day or two down in Georgia, hike the approach trail, if I can, carefully, without passing out. Then maybe getting on a bus, going up to McAfee Knob, checking that out, doing a 7.3 mile loop, and then maybe getting on a bus and going up to Mount Katahdin and just hitting, beginning, middle, and end briefly. It's better than nothing. So, and maybe in the future, I might consider doing some trail angel work or something to keep me involved in the trail community. It's getting hard to do. All that being said, if you're disappointed by this, believe me, nobody's more disappointed than me. This has been, like I said, a decade of planning, only to not be able to do it at the last second. And this is the second year in a row. Last year, when all my hernias blew up, I was forced to give up my trip. And this is the second year in a row I've tried to step off, and it just couldn't happen. So, I guess I'd just like to say thank you to anybody that was watching these videos. And I'd like to give a shout out to Ramdino, who just finally noticed that I was leaving, a day late and $1 short on my end. So yeah, if anybody's looking for videos of me hiking up the steps at Amicalola, you won't be seeing them for a while. And who knows, if this is totally dead in the water, I may take this channel down. If there's a way around it, like I said, you guys can follow me on my quick little 3-part journey, getting my toes wet on the trail. But it definitely won't be what I thought it was going to be, if it happens at all. And this has huge implications for me even returning to work, because I don't know how I can make it through a full day at work if I can't stay awake. You know, hopefully this isn't something that ends up disabling me from working. That would be an even deeper tragedy. So, you know, and I'm one of those people a long time ago who sat down with a pen and paper and wrote out my bucket list. Of course, this was at the top of my bucket list, but there's other things on my list, you know, like jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, which I don't know, once my adrenaline kicks in, I might pass out before I get to the to the landing. So, you know, and I had other plans to travel somewhere in the world, use my passport finally, you know. But today when I picked up that money from the bank, it was the most disheartening thing I've ever done. And just holding that money in my hand, I felt like throwing it out the window of my truck. I mean, there's no other thing I would have spent that money on besides this. You know, like I said, I got rid of my Harley. So what am I going to do with this money? You can't buy me something that's going to replace what this meant for me. So it's kind of pointless to have this money in my hand. It feels like I felt like, just like I said, throwing it out the window of my truck, as silly as that sounds, which I didn't. But so if anybody's watching this, like I said, we'll see what happens in the future. I wish the best of luck to everybody else who's getting to do what it is that I wanted to do. And, you know, I'll keep in touch with YouTube over the next month a couple more times to see if I can get this straightened out. But it might be the end of my trip, so wish me luck. Thanks, guys.